Welcome to Guy Code, a podcast dedicated to imparting dad wisdom to my son, with your host, Koji Steven Sakai, and friends.
All righty. Welcome. This is Koji. I don't know why I have to read that. That's me. This is Koji, and this is episode number 33. I wanted to impart all of my wisdom to my son, but of course my son already thinks he knows more than me. So instead of trying to tell him now and having it go one ear and out the other ear, I decided to record them here with the hopes that maybe, just maybe, when he's ready, he'll listen to my advice in the future and not make the same stupid mistakes I made. I'll also bring on guests to impart advice as well. That's why I have a guest on today. I have no doubt that their advice will be better than my advice. So this week I brought on one of my oldest friends from way back in the day, from all the way back back to UCSB. And she's currently a teacher out in California. It's Tricia Allen. Tricia, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Koji?
I am good. I'm busy though. I'm super busy time right now. It's crazy because my semester at one of my schools is ending, and they had turned in like a script, and I have to kind of read the script before I could give it a grade. And there's a lot of students, and I'm struggling to get through it before my deadline. But anyway, that's enough about me. Tricia, why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
Well, as you already said, we met at Santa Barbara, and God, I was trying to remember the class that we actually took. I remember it was like a retreat, and we had to do like team building or something.
It was a career class about careers.
But yeah, I'm so glad I took the class. But yeah, so one of the few people that I keep in touch with from Santa Barbara. So, quality over quantity. But yeah, I'm currently teaching high school here in the high desert of California. So not the cool places of California, but been doing that since I left Santa Barbara. And most days I actually like being a teacher. Not enjoying this distance learning stuff, but it is what it is. So, but I'm glad to be here. It challenged me to try and come up with some wisdom, some advice to impart to other people. So
I do want to say that every day I feel bad about missing your wedding, but my foot was so bad. I wish I could show you, or did I send you a picture even? I think I might have sent you a picture, but it was like, I remember I woke up that morning, I couldn't walk, and I didn't know what happened to my foot, and it was so terrible. And I remember I went to the doctor that morning, and they're like, "Oh, it's not fractured," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, so it must be fine. I don't know what's going on." And then I was like set to go to your wedding. I went to school. I taught at UCLA. I like barely got to my class because I was in so much pain, and I was like crawling around. I was like, I don't know if I could make it to a wedding, and like it's gonna be so hard to make it to. And then that day I went back to the doctor because it was getting worse. Usually like if you get a fracture, it gets better. It was getting worse, and I was like, I don't know what's wrong. So I called the doctor again. I went back, and then on Monday, I finally got an appointment at my regular doctor. And he looked at it for like 1 second. He's like, "Oh, that's a foot infection."
Oh, yeah. I didn't hear the follow up. I knew you were posted that day.
It was a really bad foot infection. It was like so bad that my foot was like triple the size, and it's like my entire foot. I couldn't walk on my foot, and it's just like, so I had to take this like super super strong antibiotics because the kind of antibiotics that like makes me sick because it's so strong. So. Because it's like killing all the diseases in my foot. Like it was bad. I mean, one of my doctor friends was like, if you didn't get that taken care of, it like they can cut off your foot kind of thing.
Ooh.
That kind of like, yeah. And I was like, oh my God. It was like, but it was so funny because it was like 3 days longer because that stupid doctor urgent care didn't even just was like, well, it's fine. It'll be better. I'm like, oh, it's not getting better.
You're like, not sure this is working, but okay, dude.
And it was like 3 weeks of like not being able to walk on that. I had like crutches. It was really pathetic. Anyway, and I never did figure out what it was. I mean, I could have been like
caused it.
A pinprick, right? It could be anything that gets my skin and just. Anyway, I still feel really terrible. That's one of the things that I really.
Well, you missed a good party, so.
That was my bad. But anyway, we're not here to talk about my missing your wedding or my foot injury. We're here to get some advice for my son through you. So why don't you tell us your first advice?
All right. Well, all of my advice, it's kind of random. Some of it's coming from, work, school teacher. Some of it's just things I wish I would have known, at least in my 20s. But my first one is emails. Don't reply all, for God's sakes. Oh my gosh. Especially like at work, and admin sends out an email and then people just start replying all, yeah, got it. And then, oh God, it just goes on and on. It's just like, just don't, it should be removed from emails. It's the dumbest thing ever. So yeah, don't reply all.
I love that, because it's always, yeah, I'm always curious that people, it's when I read people's emails, like, and the way people email people, I'm always like, did you just learn about emailing recently? Right? It's like, man, it would be so, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know when you learned how to email, but you email wrong. Although I have to admit, though, when I was working corporate, or even when I was working in the museum, I would try to beat people at emailing. So like if they email me, I'd email them back right away to like, and do like 1-word answers or something like little, just to like mess with people a lot. But have you ever done anything embarrassing on your email?
Let's see. Have I? I'm sure I've done the I don't remember if it was a reply all, but definitely replying to somebody, and I was like, oh crap, that was supposed to go to somebody else. Sorry about that. But I think most of the time I catch myself that at least the information I sent out wasn't like too terrible. I wasn't like, getting on somebody's case and shit talking them or anything. So I'm usually okay, but it's still that embarrassment of, whoops, you weren't supposed to be the one to see that. So.
Yeah. I've had, I remember when I was in graduate school, me and my girlfriend at the time we used to have this, like, because we were writers, so we wrote like these stories about our teachers and how much we wanted to like love them in that special sort of way. And so one of the teachers was this really old white dude, like 80s, 90s kind of guy. So we talked about like who he loved more, who he wanted to, do things to. And he asked me randomly like his new email address. And so I like cut and pasted it, but I didn't cut and paste it. I just copied it. So he was on that email. And he responded, he's like, Koji, I didn't know you felt that way about me. I was like, oh my God.
Oh my gosh.
That was really embarrassing. And then
yeah,
we were mortified, because I mean, at least it wasn't like really, really graphic. It was graphic, but it wasn't like getting kicked out of school kind of graphic. So
well, that's a bonus.
Anyway, I love that advice. I think that's one of the most practical pieces of advice we've ever got about replying all.
God, I hate it so much.
All right, well, what's another piece of advice?
Well, here's one that I wish I'd known before starting UCSB. Don't get freaking credit cards. I spent most of a good chunk of my 30s trying to get out of all the credit card debt that so it was like a couple bank cards and department store cards. And I wish I had better, money understanding and learned how to save better, because you end up paying so much more for all these items if you put it on a credit card than if you just bothered to save the money and pay for it with your debit card. I hate credit cards so much. I mean, I do still have one and only one, but yeah, credit cards are nobody's friend. And they, of course, well, at least when we were at Santa Barbara, I can only assume they still do it, where they have the little tent set up on the UCIN and they're trying to like hawk credit cards to unsuspecting college students. Like, here, you want one and you get a free t-shirt.
Yeah.
Because that free t-shirt really made it worth it.
What would you have told yourself if you could have gone back and before this?
It's not worth it. Save the money if you really, because most of that stuff, I couldn't even tell you the stuff that I have purchased on credit cards. Apparently it just wasn't that important. But at the time, because I don't have any patience, at the time it was really important that I got, probably some clothing or a new pair of shoes or something. But it's just, it really is not worth it at all. Especially those department store ones, their interest rates are just crazy high.
Yeah. No, those are crazy. Actually, I have a credit freeze. Have you ever heard of that? So in the state of California, you could freeze your credit, and a couple other states, whereas basically you keep accumulating credit, but what it means is that there's actually there's a freeze on your social security number. So that means that you can't actually get more credit unless you unfreeze it. And it's really great because I can basically like walk around and give everyone my social security number, and there's zero anybody could do with it, because it's just frozen. And what's really awesome about that is, and it makes sense to our conversation, because whenever I've like ever thought about opening a card, I'm like, it's too much work to unfreeze it. Like, 'cause I have to call.
That's good. Yeah.
I have to call I have to call all three credit bureaus and go through this whole thing and get it canceled. Get it like stopped for a while, then restart it. It's just so much work. I'm like, forget. I don't want to do it. And the only time I'm gonna really unfreeze it is I'm gonna buy a house, or I'm buying something that's big enough, or I'm getting a job. I need to like unfreeze it for something, like something that's like big enough that I'm willing to do the work. And it's also good just in terms of privacy. Like the biggest issue for me is that I'm not worried about somebody stealing my credit card, because I'll figure it out sooner than later and it'll get covered. I'm worried about somebody taking my social security number, opening up something that I don't know about for a long time, and then realizing it like 5 years later that somebody did something terrible. But this is good advice for everybody, is that if you can, and you live in a state that has the ability to freeze credit, you should totally do it. It's like the best thing I ever learned to do.
Yeah, that's actually really smart, because I mean, it just makes it so much more difficult to.
It puts up these barriers. Yeah, that's the thing. Like a lot of people think, it stops your credit, but no, it keeps whatever existing credit you have, and it gets better because you're actually not bringing more debt. You're not opening more credit cards or more loans. You're actually keeping it where you are, so you're getting it great. But I think that would be really, really great advice. I think that credit cards are the bane. They were also the bane of my existence as well. But just having, like the easy money. I don't know what I would have said. What I would have said to myself, though. I don't think I would have listened to myself.
I probably wouldn't. It would be nice to go back with today's mindset back then. But honestly, if I had the same mindset, I probably still would have opened a credit card. But man, I really did get a second job for like 3 years. Just because I was able to throw that second paycheck onto those credit cards and just get rid of them. But it really wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's totally not worth it. I remember one of my actually earlier, a couple of episodes ago, one of my friends had come on, and he said that his dad sat him down and talked to him about how when he was a kid, they said you could either buy a Mercedes or a Honda Accord, and they actually cost the same if you buy the Mercedes up front in cash, and if you like that's X amount, but if you finance the Honda Accord, you're actually paying the Mercedes value just longer over the course of like however many years your loan is. And he's like, wouldn't you rather have a Mercedes? Like if you had to choose between those two cars and pay the same amount. And that really stuck out to me in terms of like, that is interesting. And that's like credit cards, right? Ultimately, it's like you're spending it on all these little things that ultimately you can't remember, but you're actually paying like for like an amazing trip to Europe or something.
That was actually probably one of them I put on the credit card. Because I did travel when I was at Santa Barbara, at least, or I think just after, but yeah, that was probably one of them.
That's hilarious.
Totally worth it at the time.
Yeah, totally worth it. Steve, this is why my number one advice to my son has always been marry rich. So then the credit cards are the problem.
Yeah, which we heard that. So with my husband, we were listening to some of the podcasts.
Oh yeah.
And because we're both teachers, I've been teaching longer. I make more than him, and so he married rich. I did not. Nice. So I was like, dang it, this didn't work out for me.
Yeah, you messed up the.
Yeah, but it's all good.
Well, even in my career, it's hard for me to do what I do without my wife making really good money at her business or her job, and it's just being able to have somebody who has a steady income, especially when I do something creative, makes it a lot easier for me not have to worry about where our next paycheck's going to come from or where the next money is coming from.
Exactly.
All right, well, let's hear the next piece of advice.
All right, so this one I love, and I happened to just be listening to one of your food ones yesterday, but it's try new foods, because one, your taste buds will change, but also, and it gets to your food one of learning to cook, is that when you learn to cook things the way that you like them, you may not have liked them in your childhood, but if you revisit them in adulthood, they can be a lot better, because there are definitely vegetables. I found this out recently. My mom is not a vegetable person. And so she tortured us with eating vegetables as a child, but some of them were canned vegetables, which there's some that I just won't go back to. They're gross.
Yeah, they're gross.
But if you eat them fresh, so asparagus, my mom would get canned asparagus, tastes like worms.
Yeah.
But I like to roast asparagus, and it's amazing. But it's one of those, if I hadn't bothered to go back and try some of these things, they would still be on my no list. So zucchinis and spaghetti squash and so many vegetables that I enjoy cooking now that I did not like as a child, and go back and revisit them, because your taste buds will change, and especially once you learn how to cook them the way that you like them, it makes a world of difference.
Wow, I really like that, because I always wonder what it is about childhood that makes people not want to eat certain food. Part of me feels like their taste buds are better, and that they're just a lot richer. And so when they taste things that the spicy tastes incredibly spicy, or other things, sweet tastes really sweet. And whereas by the time you get to our age, it's just like everything's dulled. So it has to be like intensely more sweet or intensely more salty or whatever, sweet, whatever it is. There's, I don't know, but I love that advice.
I know for me, with for bananas, for instance, I did not like them as a child. And for me, it was a memory. I remember I was eating banana flavored bubble gum on a drive home from my grandparents' house. And we were coming from Needles, where the road would go up and down. And I'm chewing on this bubble gum and now getting car sick. And so those two memories, the flavor of the bananas and the car sickness, were just really linked for the longest time. But now I do eat bananas. I'm very specific. They still have to be like a little bit of green, no brown. But I did revisit bananas, and I actually do like them. But for the longest time, it was that the smell and the taste of the bananas was linked to almost vomiting in a car. So
yeah, mine was cauliflower. I didn't, for whatever reason, I love, broccoli is my favorite thing to eat in the world. I could eat broccoli in every different way, but I always called cauliflower the albino broccoli.
yes,
And I just couldn't handle it, even near me. But then I suddenly ate it, and I was like, this is actually really good. But also, I think a lot of it has to, in America especially. I mean, I don't know about it as much now, but when we were growing up, I mean, they just cook the crap out of vegetables, to the point of it tastes like mush. I remember going over to my friends, my non-Asian friends' houses, and eating their food. I'm like, well, what? This is vegetable? Because in Asians, if anything, we probably undercook it, in that it's a lot more the natural, way it is, or flavor. Oh, my son appeared in my video. But and I just remember being like, wow, if I had to eat vegetables like this, I wouldn't eat vegetables, because it would be canned beans, or or just green beans.
yeah. Well, you bring up broccoli, and my mom, the only way she knew how to cook
Frozen?
broccoli was, well, it was fresh, but she steamed the hell out of it until it actually started getting more of a brown color.
Oh no.
And yeah, that's overcooking. I know that now. And so, but I like to cook, I roast the broccoli, I put it in stir fry. I rarely, if ever, steam it, unless it's for a very specific recipe. But that's one of those foods that I hated as a child, because it was mush. It was so gross.
I mean, I don't mind steaming it but it's a light steam. It's not it's still crunchy. It still has to be crunchy.
Yes, exactly.
If it's not crunchy, then I think you've overcooked it a lot. And plus, it takes out all the vitamins anyway. So at that point, you might as well not even eat it, I feel like.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's lost so much. What was the point?
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, what's your next piece of advice?
All right. This one comes from the teacher in me. And it is, do your homework, because there is no such thing as extra credit.
Oh, wow.
I hate it. Kids that don't do their homework and then right before the end of a grading period, is there any extra credit I can do to bring my grade up?
Oh, you could do that? I never knew you could do that.
Well, for me, it's a no, because if you were doing all the work for credit, I would not have to come up with an assignment that's extra credit.
Yeah.
And I try and tell my students at the beginning of every year, it's like, I don't do extra credit. It does not exist, because you should be doing your work, which is practice. It's to me, it's no different than a sport. If you're going out and practicing your free throws, or pitching, or whatever your sport might be, homework is that practice. And if you're doing it to the best of your ability, then it should pay off in your test grades, and obviously you're hopefully getting 100% in your homework grades, and so you should be passing the class. And therefore there's no such thing as extra credit, because you were never doing the work for credit.
I mean, that's like in life too, right? I mean, ultimately, if you're not doing the work, then you can't go to your boss and say, like, can I get extra work to show you that I want to do more work, or to show you that I'm capable, even though I didn't do the work that you assigned to me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it even though I'm applying it directly to school, yeah, it does, I think, carry over into life as well.
Yeah, I mean, when I was just talking to my son about this, that I teach colleges now, and I was telling him how I don't care ultimately if the kid shows up or not, or if they turn in their homework or not. It's none of my business. If they want to come and they want to be in class and they want to do your work, I'd love to teach them. But by the time they're in college, I tell them, if you don't show up, if you don't do your homework, I'm going to give you an F, and I don't care. I'm not going to even think about it, because it doesn't bother me either way. Because, and I always tell them, if you don't do this one assignment, this is the most important assignment of the class. If you don't do this, there's zero chance that you could get anything but an F in this class, or this grade, this class, right? And it's just, and that as you get older, I think that a lot of the kids, they don't realize that it just, like, people don't care. They're not going to hold your hand. And I think it's a good service for teachers like you to say, no, like, ultimately you have to do the work that's assigned to you and turn it in on time. And if you do that, you'll get your grade will be fine. If you don't, then you won't. Right.
Yeah.
And the quicker they learn that, I think the better it is.
Yeah.
The more the teachers kind of coddle them now, especially by high school, I think it does a disservice to them, because they think they could keep getting away with that, And I think high school and middle school and elementary school, all school in general, it's never about intelligence.
No.
To me, it's just about, can you follow directions? Can you do what's assigned? Can you spit back information at me? Can you do what you're supposed to do and do it well and in a timely manner, and and learn those skills? And ultimately, because you could be really smart and get bad grades, or you could be really dumb and get great grades. Not really a sign of intelligence. I love that piece of advice, though. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one I wish my students would listen to me.
Can I ask a secret question? No one's listening.
Sure.
Did you ever ask your teachers for extra credit?
I don't think I did.
Okay.
But I also know, when I was in high school, at least, like, looking back, my mom was a teacher, and she would have killed me if I failed classes. So I was that kid that just, I'm getting a C in a class, keeps my mom off my back, I'm good. I didn't try to do anything more. My senior year, I actually, because one of the people I'd been hanging out with, we weren't enemies, but we weren't really good friends anymore. And so I had more free time. So I actually started applying myself, and was like an A/B student my senior year, but was a C student all the other ones. But yeah, I was applying just get all the work you can done. And, I got good-ish grades on tests. And to me, that's the thing. It's like, it's not really my intelligence. It's how much effort I'm putting into to my work.
Yeah.
Is how I see it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like the same thing I talk to my students about. I say, like, when you grow up and you go to a pitch meeting, you can't be 20 minutes late to a pitch meeting. The pitch is done. Your career's over. Like, if anything, you show up 20 minutes early, and you got it. So, like, I grade you on, if you're in your, like, well, now we're not in our seats, but if you're on Zoom at the time I start class, you get credit for being there. If you're not, then you don't get any credit at all, because as far as I'm concerned, you're not there. I'll give you like a 3-minute window, but for the most part, if you're not there, you're not there. And that's just the way it is, you know? And I know a lot of crap goes down and sometimes things happen, but that's up to you. That's not my problem, you know? But yeah, so do you have a last piece of advice?
I do. This one, actually, my husband gave it to me. And it's basically take the time off. Yeah, use your vacations. If you think you need to take time off, do it. And it stems from last October when I had my surgery. And I was in the hospital for just shy of 2 weeks. And he was still coming and visiting me, but he would come for a day and then work the next 2 days. And at that point, my parents were visiting me, so I was never alone. But he's just like, man, I should have just taken the time off. He goes, I don't feel I was my best at either thing. My teaching, I was distracted because I was tired and whatever. He goes, but I also wasn't spending the time with you. And I was fine. Like I was still, getting visitors with my parents. So I was never getting on his case. It's just his feelings of, I should have just taken the time off. I should have used my sick hours. I should have just been there. And so it's just, if those situations come up, it's just take the time off, take that vacation time and, do what needs to be done. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, that's actually a good piece of advice.
Yeah, no, that's a really wonderful. I learned the same lesson when my wife got really sick, and I remember, we're both really busy people, incredibly busy. We work every day, 7 days a week, all night, and I just remember when she was really, really sick, and just being like, we need to, because like they told us like for a while I thought she was gonna die, and I remember just being like, we can't push off a vacation just because, for the future, because we're both, we're all the same age, and we thought, oh, we have a lot of time together. But that sickness really made us realize that even if we're just going to go to San Diego or go to somewhere close just for a weekend, that we need to take the time to spend time together. And, because you never know when it could have been taken away. Because, even for my wife, the only reason we even found out she had cancer was because we tried to have a second baby. Mm-hmm. And we thought that was like, if we never had a second baby, she would never find out until way, way later. And it would have been really terrible. But yeah, no, I think that's really, really great, because we get caught up in our day-to-day, in our work, in our life, and but you guys as teachers, I think don't you guys have more time off though together?
Well, obviously we have summers off and we get sick leave, but part of the problem with just being a teacher and taking time off during the school year is all the work you put into prepping for a sub. And so hence it tends to be, that mentality of it's just easier if, before Corona, when you would show up sick with a cold or whatever, it's easier if I go in and just power through it and get it done versus all of the work I have to put in for doing a sub. And then most likely the students aren't going to do what I want them to anyways. But at the end of the day, it's just sometimes you just take the time off. Just, it's a movie day for the kids, whatever, just, take that time even if it's just for yourself for like mental health day, just take the time.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the way to go for sure. Yeah. I remember that when I was a sub, there's never anything for me to do when I came to a class. Like I think only one time in my entire year of subbing did I have an assignment from the teacher that they wanted me to do. Otherwise, just me sitting in there and being a babysitter. So
well, maybe I'm working too hard, because I'm always leaving stuff like stacks of worksheets, pass this out. And
no, that would make my life way easier. As a sub, just to have something to do. I basically had to come to class with my own material, because I'd be like, I just want something to pass the 60 minutes or whatever I'm doing just to get through this time period, Oh, well. I love all your advice. I think that all your advice is super, super useful. I think.
Great. Awesome.
I think in a lot of ways, your advice are things that everyone can do, and that it isn't, they're not hard to do, but they're just good things to remember to do, right? Like
exactly.
Try new foods, or do your homework on time, and don't ask for extra credit, and take take like the time off or and use your vacation, because ultimately I think as Americans I do think we work too long and too much, right?
Yes.
And I think that like other countries have better lives and they work less than us, which is amazing to me.
Yeah. Well, in a lot of countries, like so Italy, like the vacation time, they force their employees to do it. They're
Yeah,
like, no, seriously, you have the 2 weeks, you are taking it, even if you just stay home, where we tend to hoard it. And so many people get to the end of their careers and they're like, oh well, I can retire now and still get paid for 6 months because that's how much leave I have built up. It's just
yeah.
take the time off.
Although
So,
when you have a creative job like mine, I don't get time off, and that's one of the
that's
challenges
true.
with vacation with me. I remember I was when we could travel back in the day when we could travel. I remember I was in Hawaii and everyone would go sleep, and I still have to start working because, unlike my wife, I wasn't getting paid when on this vacation. It just means that everything I was doing is pushed back 2 weeks because that's like the amount of time I'm not working or whatever amount of time I'm not working. Um, so I remember just being like, this is challenging. But I think that's part of the problem with the gig economy and the creative economies is that it's so hard um to like make a living when there's no like fallback. Like if I get sick, I just get sick and I just can't work and I'm not going to make any money.
Yeah.
If you have a real job.
I don't know what that's like. And so, yeah, I've got that 7 day a week practically job. And yeah, so I can only imagine what it's like to, not have that security essentially.
Yeah, but it is what it is. I mean, that's why I have like 8 jobs because I do. That's it. I work at the Japanese American. I part-time at the Japanese American National Museum. I teach at Chapman now. I teach at UCLA. I teach at New York Film Academy. I teach at a school called International Technology University in Northern California, and then I consult all these different places. So yeah, I know I have a
Oh,
ton of.
wow.
but thank you so much for coming on. Do you have any? If I'm going to put you on the spot, any life advice for my son in particular?
Mm, uh, no, just, find something that you like to do and do it. I think I've heard that from quite a few of your other guests.
Yeah.
Just, you know, I I didn't go to UCSB thinking I was going to be a teacher, but that's where I am. And I most of the time I actually really enjoy my job. And so I ended up where I needed to be, even though I didn't want to be a teacher at the time. So just, find that stuff that you like to do and just go for it.
Yeah.
And I would also suggest finding something that is artistic, even if it's a hobby. I've because of one of the classes I teach now, which is yearbook, I've gotten really into photography, and so
Oh,
I've
cool.
actually learned how to use my camera more, not just on auto. But I always liked that artistic stuff. I took painting and photography at Santa Barbara. I took drawing at a community college. I like art, and even though I don't sit down and do something every day, I think having that artistic outlet is just enjoyable, even if it's not your job.
Yeah.
It's a good thing to have.
No, I agree. I think that's really helpful. I actually don't want my son to do art, so but I think as a hobby, it's wonderful.
Yeah,
It's a great thing to do, be able to write or to take pictures
exactly.
or paint or whatever. But thank you so much, Trisha. It was really great. It was really great to hear. First of all, see you and hear you. I know we missed you when we went to Manzanar, but next time we head out that way, we're definitely make a stop and visit you guys.
Please do.
It was a very interesting vacation this time because of the coronavirus and
Yeah.
the world falling apart. But thank you guys for listening, and please rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. If you like any of the advice you heard today, please tell one person about any of the advice Trisha gave and let them know where you heard the advice and have them download, listen, and review the podcast. So thank you guys. Thank you, Trisha, again. Thank you, everyone, and peace out. Bye, guys.